So we know our ICP and we know the value that we bring to our customers. Now it's time to sit down and write our first email. We're going to run through email outreach fundamentals here in this video and then look at a couple examples on how we can write these emails. So as we dive in here, I want you to keep in mind the goal of these emails. The goal here is to get a response. In a response, even if it's a "I'm not interested," that's okay. We want to elicit a response from these emails. The worst case scenario is these emails go completely unresponded to, because then we have no clue if this prospect is potentially interested, if they're not interested at all, or if they definitely want to talk to us, but they just haven't gotten back to us. So we're aiming for, or our goal here is to get a response on these emails. So let's dive in and see how we do that. As usual, we're going to use our favorite hotel tech company here, Canary, as an example. If you're just joining us in this video, Canary is a mobile check-in app that hotels can use to streamline the check-in process, improve customer satisfaction, and a whole host of other things. Check them out, and we're going to actually dive into it here in a second. So let's look at the cold email formula. Now, really, there's only two components to any email. One is the subject line, which is the first thing that anybody reading your email is going to see. And then two is the actual body or the message inside of your email. Now, the subject line's goal is simply to grab attention. We just want it to pique their curiosity so that they click on that email and read that email. And then the goal of the body is to elicit a response. Remember, our whole goal of the email is just to get a response. So we want the body of the email to really invoke curiosity and action out of the prospect to respond to us. Now, there's 4 parts of the body here. We're going to run through all these 4 parts in a moment. Okay, looking at some subject line examples here. The goal of the subject line, again, is just to grab attention. We want to keep it short and sweet, personalize it as much as we can, obviously optimize it for mobile. Most emails today, I think over 80% of them are read on mobile. And we don't want to trick the prospect here with a gimmicky subject line that's only going to make them not want to respond to us more. So what I'd recommend is keeping it short and sweet, keeping it very generic, very neutral. The more neutral it is, the more potentially curious the person is to open it. So what has worked for me in the past, something as simple as prospect's name connecting with sender's name. So let's say I'm sending an email to Jane. I might just say Jane connecting with Mitch. Now Jane is thinking, do I know Mitch? Who's Mitch? Maybe I want to open this email. Maybe if I have some feedback for the prospect, I might put something like that in the subject line. Maybe if if I'm emailing hotels as a SDR at Canary, I might say check-in process feedback or guest check-in feedback. Right? If I was a general manager of a hotel, I might open that. Maybe if I was the VP of finance at the hotel and the subject line said reduce credit card chargebacks or reduce chargebacks, or streamline check-in process. Right? Something that's just generic, not too flashy. That's going to get them to open the email. That's what you're going for in the subject line. All right. Now, let's assume the prospects open the email. We're going to want that first sentence to lead off with a bang here. And this is the personal touch that we're talking about. Because so much of email today is just mass blasting spam crap that someone's flooding your inbox with, we really, really, really want to show that this first email isn't spam, that this first email is personalized, and that we actually know who we're talking to here. That first sentence is just meant to capture their attention so that they read the second sentence and the third and the fourth and so on. So what we want to do is personalize here, but we don't want to just personalize to personalize. We want to make sure that whatever we're saying, we can relate back to our product or solution. We want to, ultimately, we want to try to hint at some sort of pain or problem that the prospect might be feeling today. And we'll talk about and we'll look at in a moment an example of how we can go out there and find this personalized information, but ultimately using things like Google and LinkedIn, other social media sites to understand who you're emailing. Really quickly, here's a good and bad example of personalization. A bad example would be something like, hey, I saw you like Star Wars. I like Star Wars too. Maybe they like Star Wars, but that has nothing to do with what we are talking about and nothing to do with your product or service. So best avoid it. Same thing goes for music or movies or even locations. Like, hey, I see you're in San Francisco, I'm in San Francisco. That's like the lowest form of personalization. If you have nothing else to go with, that's okay. But better if you can focus on some sort of pain or problem that they might be facing. Like, for example, hey, prospect, I read in Newswire that your team's focused on customer health and safety during the pandemic. I imagine your team will be rolling out a new check-in procedure to reduce contact between guests and staff. That leads us right in to a nice pitch. And if they've seen that, hey, we've done some research, we found a quote of them in an article or some sort of news press release, now they know that this isn't mass blasted spam, but it is tailored to them. And they might be curious enough to keep reading. Now, if they keep reading, which if you've done your job, hopefully they are, then you want to make sure that you're going right in to leading with benefits in the body of the email here. So what we mean by this is we don't want to just start pitching features at them. It will mean nothing to them if we just start throwing stats and features at them. Like, hey, my app does X, Y, and Z. My app does this. My app does that. What we want to do is make it about them. We want the whole body of the email to be focused on the prospect, how their life is going to get better, how we're going to solve their pain points. So you could talk about how you help them increase or decrease X, Y, and Z. You could offer them some sort of advice on improvements for maybe their product or solution or something they might be dealing with. Talk about how you can help them increase their revenue or decrease their costs or streamline a process. All we want to make sure we're doing is talking about them, not just about our solution here. Then we're going to make sure that we're demonstrating some credibility here. We want to show them that our company is legit. They probably don't know who we are. They probably never heard of us. So what we want to do is use some third-party credibility here to come off as a legit vendor or legit seller in their mind. So, for example, we can name drop other companies we work with that they might recognize. We can talk about, if we don't have any customers yet, maybe, we can talk about some investors that we have that have backed us. That shows some credibility, shows we're legit. We can talk about some stats that other customers have seen using our product or solution that they might be interested in. The goal here is just to show them that we're legit and continue to build in their mind a credible story here, how we can help. And then the last part, and this is one of the most important parts here, is to close the email with a simple ask. We want to make it easy for the prospect to take action. If they've made it all the way through our email and they've read the whole thing, they've taken time out of their day, we want to make sure that we end that email with an ask. It can be simple, it can be straightforward, but we have to end with an ask. And we want to make it easy for the prospect to take action. So when we say easy, ideally we want them to be able to say or send over a single word response. So yes, no, maybe, I don't know, or forward it on to somebody else. Those are all acceptable responses. But we want to elicit a response here. So it could be as simple as something like, yes, no, are you interested in learning more? Or go with a hard ask, like, how does Wednesday or Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific time look for us to connect? Or you could say, hey, if you're curious to see what this would look like at your company, say the word, and I'll shoot over a custom 5-minute demo recording for you. Right? We're making it really easy for them. They don't have to commit to much, and we're going to do all the hard work, all the heavy lifting on our side. And then lastly, maybe something like, hey, here's the link to my calendar. Feel free to grab some time with me if this is of interest to you. Now, some of these require more lift on the prospect than others. Taking time out of their day to talk with you may be a pretty big ask, and they may not want to commit to something like that right away. But something like, are you interested in learning more? That seems pretty light and easy. Or, hey, I'll send you a recording if you're interested. That's pretty light and easy, right? Now they just have to watch a recording. They don't have to talk with you, actually. So we want to make it really easy here. My biggest pet peeve that I get whenever I receive any cold emails is somebody asking me what day and time works for me. So do not ever say this in email. Let me know what daytime works for you. Now we're putting all of the onus on the prospect to go look at their calendar, to go find a day and a time when they probably don't really want to talk to you. If you want to talk to them that bad, you should take the effort to propose some days and times and send those over in the email. And it's just sloppy, it's just lazy, and it doesn't get responses. So at all costs, leave this one out. Focus on a simpler, easier ask up above. All right, last thing here, and then we're going to look at some examples. So formatting emails is so important. Before you hit send on any email, take a second, read it over, read it out loud to yourself, make sure it sounds like a human wrote it, and make sure that it sounds professional. So one of the easiest things you can do to format your emails correctly is to break it up into smaller chunks of text. Don't have a huge block of text there in the middle of the page. It's hard to read and it's going to take someone 4 minutes to get through. What you can do is break all of your text up into either single lines or small paragraphs. And when I say paragraphs, I mean a paragraph is 1 to 3 sentences. It's not a novel. We're talking micro paragraphs here, but break them up into smaller pieces. If you're listing out a bunch of things, bullet those lists out in the middle of the page so that they're not huge run-on sentences. And then it's okay to bold and italicize any important information so that it stands out. Like if you're talking about sending over a meeting time on Wednesday at 2 p.m., maybe bullet or bold out Wednesday at 2 p.m. so it really stands out. The goal here is just to create a very, very easy to read email so that the prospect can get through it, take action, and you can engage with them and set up next steps.